Okay, so we are going to talk about materials. I got ahead of myself. We're not going to talk about animation just yet. We're going to talk about materials, then we'll talk about animating objects. Okay, so I just set up a few objects here. I got a ball, a cube, the martini glass we made, a cylinder, and a teapot. And behind that, I actually have created a wall, and they're on top of a plane. And so if I zoom out here, you can see I've got my plane. You know what? It doesn't need to have. We're not going to do anything with it, so it can just have one by one segment. We don't need more than that, and then it'll get out of our way. Okay, good. And then for lighting, I just set up a default light, default sunlight system. I just use a sunlight system, and then I have one target light in here that no shadows because the sunlight's doing that. And then I turn down the multiplier because this is just a fill light, and I overshot it. Okay, so that's it. That's all I've got set up in my scene. Oops. And then when I render it out, those are my objects. I also put a camera in here because I like to be able to use a camera. I feel like I have more control with the camera. There's my camera. Oh, it's over there. Okay. And so I can, didn't mean for it to look that high in the sky. There we go. Okay, so that's better. And so you just see I now have 3D objects. The overhead, the sunlight system is casting light, and the fill light. Let's move it a little bit over this way. It's just keeping those shadows from being too intense. Let's do one other thing. I'll grab my sunlight. It's way up over here. I got a motion tab. Let's make it a little bit later in the day. There we go. And this is rendering a little slow for some reason, and I'm not sure why. And there's nothing in here that should cause it to slow down. But, okay, so there we are. So we've got our objects. Okay, so we're going to go back up here to the material editor, right here. If yours is on the slate material editor, you can just pull down that button on the corner to get the compact material editor. And we've already kind of covered what these basic areas are here and how to attach a map. Okay, so let's say my first slot, I'm going to attach a bitmap of, let's see, I got a bunch of lava in here. Let's just pick the concrete. Okay, so I've attached the concrete, and I'm going to come over here to my cylinder, and I'm going to assign material to selection. And it was already gray, but it turned gray. It turns gray when you've attached it. Then I want to come down here to this icon, and I'm not quite sure what that is. This looks like a rock to me, but I'm sure it's supposed to be something. It says show shaded material in viewport. Watch down here. Watch here when I click that button right there. When I click this button, watch the cylinder. And so this way you don't have to keep rendering out. See, I rendered this and it took it a while to render it. Now I can just see it there. For the most part, this does pretty well. It's never perfect. You always want to, when you feel like you got everything right, you want to do a test render. But for the most part, this is going to now allow me not to have to worry about dealing with that while I set this up, because I can now see my concrete in my scene, which is pretty cool. I'm going to need to go get some other materials. And remember that when you do this, you want seamless texture maps. So let's try brick. And that looks pretty much like it's seamless. That, yep, and that. You just look at the edges, and if this one looks like it matches this one, and this one looks like it matches up here, you're probably good to go. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to save that. Just call it brick. And that is considered red, even though it's orange. Now I want to show you guys something while we're here. If you have Photoshop, you can take a picture of anything and use it with Photoshop to create a series of texture maps that you need to create your maps. I'm trying to see, this one looks like it matches this one. Okay, so you see how this is gray? Yeah, that looks like it's, all right, we're going to download this one too, and I'll explain why in a second here. So we're going to do brick, and we're going to call this our bump map. B-U-M-P. Bump map. Okay, and we're going to use those two together. I'll show you how in a minute. Okay, so my wall back here, we're going to come down to my maps, and under, stretch this out so it stops doing that, and under diffuse, we're going to double click on bitmap and get the red brick. Now this is what's in color. So attach it to the wall and show it in the viewport. There we go. Okay, there's some things wrong with it, and we're going to have to fix them. And I'll show you how to do that. So when we attach that, we go down a level. All right, so when you're in this one, you're at the default. You see where the name is right here? It's called the default. This was at the default, and then I attached this, and it went into another lower level that has all this information in it. To get back out, we're going to go back, just pull this down and go back to the default. And now you can see that's where we were. And it's sort of like you can consider it a portal into the next realm, or into the door into the next room. And so what I want to do is I want to pull and drop, and do as an instance, just drag and drop like that. Click, pull, and drop. Specular color and specular level. And you're adding these colors rather than the defaults. And change that to 95 because I don't want it full strength. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, so now I have that for all three of them, and that's going to make the color look even better. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to come to this bump right here where it says no map. Click on that, double click, and then get my, it may or may not align. Not sure. Okay, and then we're going to go back out. And so what bump does is it gives this fake illusion of 3 dimension. Anything that's black will recede, and anything that's white will pop out, and shades of gray across the spectrum in between do pump or go in and out based on the value of the color. Okay, so for this we want to do the opposite. In this case we want the white to recede, because those are our grout joints, and we want the darker color to stick out. So we're going to take this number and we're going to bring it down. And I don't know, I'm going to try something like that. Now I'm going to render it out just to see, because it looks okay here, but it's still kind of flat. Yeah, they don't align. Okay, so while it's great to have that black and white map, they don't align. So what I'm going to do is, you can do this, it's not ideal, but it still works, is you can right click on this to delete it, clear it, and use that as your bump. You really want it to be a black and white map. You want it to be shades of gray, but this will work. I'll show you. It didn't work as well, but it did work. Okay, so one of the problems I have is that brick map isn't scaled properly. When we pull that map off, the bricks are not as long as they're appearing on here. And this is something you're going to want to do for all your non-standard primitives or anytime you have an issue. So I'm selecting my wall, and even though it is a box, it's still doing something off. It's off. So what I want to do is I want to go to my Modify tab and go pull down UVW map. That's called a UVW map modifier. And that's weird. It's showing up. Oh, there we go. There are the parameters. Okay. So the first thing they're asking you is mapping. And by default, normally it's a box. And that should work. But for some reason, it's not working. And one of the reasons it may not be working is that it might be not scaled properly. So you want to make sure the real world map size is unchecked. And then you want to come back over here to the map. You can click on any of these because we're just going to the map. And you want to make sure that's turned off. Okay, everything's right, but it's not working. All right, let's try something. There we go. I don't know what happened, but the second time I clicked on this, now it's right. You see it's scaled properly now. Before it wasn't. That was wrong. By adding this map modifier, it's causing it to scale properly. Okay. And so now when I render this out, voila. Oh, you know what's off? I never reset from when we were working on this before, I don't think. No, I did. It's back to normal. Let's see. Nope. It's too much. I like it, but I don't like it for what we're trying to do. Okay, go back to that. One of these days it's gonna be the thing I need. Okay, so there we go. So I'll go through this again with these with other objects to show you, but that's basically the bottom line is when you're working with materials and you want to attach your different maps. They help allow you to create the illusion of a brick wall or a concrete cylinder. And we'll do glass and we'll do metal and we'll do some other things. And I'll show you how to get those set up. This again is just basic. It's just enough for you guys to be able to do some basic stuff. You're really learning modeling and animation right now. We'll do a whole class on materials and lighting. But for now, stop right here and I'll see you in the next video.